Right, we're off. Gutting scenes. Is this going out to just you, Rob, or is it also to Charlie and his?
This goes out to all those who suffered crushing losses this week. My team is part of that, having dropped to one of the worst records in the league. I think it's time that we remember the fallen.
of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
I've just realised
And those
actually, like I was complaining about, oh yeah, my standings aren't going to work. Some of them are going to be wrong anyway because it's been a change in a result since I did them. Because I did them yesterday.
Yeah, the words of Didier Drogba spring to mind. This is a disgrace. But no, another good week of fantasy performances for some people. Another exciting week in the NFL. And we're back to take stock and have a look at what's happened in our wonderful, sometimes, league.
Fantastic! Can't wait. The audience will have to forgive us if we're a bit slow, a bit slower than usual. We've not recorded before 5 p.m. before. So me in particular, this is very unusual.
So this might be the most active you've been at 11 a.m. in months.
I know. Actually, to be fair, over the weekend I did get up before midday 3 times in a row. It was unbelievable.
Oh, wow. That is enormous.
I think I get to play the sloth card most because I
You do have an excuse.
Well, I woke up at 5 p.m. yesterday, and I've been working all night, so that might impact on the curtness of some of my takes.
I just had a 45-minute Zoom call.
I'm not taking any shit from Charlie.
I just had a 45-minute Zoom call with a lady called Barbara. So you tell me who's had the more taxing start to their day.
I don't know. Rufus did kind of bark at me a bit when I went in the kitchen. That was pretty traumatic. We should probably start off by talking about the Charlie situation. I don't know if some people might not be very clear on what's happened. But you guys were discussing it as I joined the call just now. So why don't you let everyone know what we think has happened or what we know? I don't know.
Well, shall I address it? Because I think I was down to discuss this matchup this week.
Go ahead.
So essentially, what has happened is Charlie pulled off a dramatic last gasp victory over the Simon Sweethearts, winning 93.14 points to 92.3, so by less than a full point. And critically, the game ended. The game ended at the end of the late night game on Monday with a Micah Parsons sack for the Cowboys, followed by an interception for the Cowboys, which earned Luke 3 points, but at the same time ended the game and therefore meant that he was just short of Charlie and unable to catch him up. As it subsequently has turned out, those interventions actually won Luke the game. Because what's happened overnight is that Charlie has lost 5 points. Now, we think the reason this is that Max Crosby has lost 4 points and the Raiders defense has lost 1 point for him. So we think what would make sense, therefore, is that a sack that had been attributed to Crosby has subsequently been deemed not a sack. So it was a tackle, it was a quarterback hit, but it was in front of the line of scrimmage, and therefore 4 points for the sack has been taken off Crosby, and 1 point for the sack has been taken off the Raiders D, which has ultimately cost Charlie the matchup and led to a loss in a crucial week, which he would rather like to have gone home with a victory. Does that sound right to you guys?
Sounds about right. I think maybe we should go through every snap of the Las Vegas Raiders versus the New England Patriots and perhaps try and find this incident.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
There's nothing more I'd rather spend my Wednesday afternoon on. Yeah. Sounds about right. In that vein, though, why don't you keep going with the Simon Sweethearts and Mercer whistleblowers, John? Because we were meant to start with this game anyway.
So, to be honest, it's not necessarily one that Charlie would go home from expecting to have won. He had a lot of stinker performances this week. Kirk Cousins, after his excellent start of season form, has really imploded in recent weeks. And I think any team starting Jerick McKinnon can't really expect to be winning, or at least not unless it was end of last season form Jerick McKinnon. So he had another good performance from Keenan Allen. He had some decent performances from the players on the Raiders defense, including Crosby, despite the docking of points at the last minute. But really, everyone else has not turned up in a significant way. And specifically, that includes James Cook, who looked really quite poor last weekend, even though the box score of 7.3 points is not too bad. And like I said, a real issue for him at quarterback, which needs to be amended. Is there anyone particularly that you want to pick out on Charlie's side, you guys?
I'd quite like to mention his two defensive players who, throughout the season, are sitting on both very tidy numbers of sacks. Chris Jones has had a sack every single game since he's come back from his holdout. And Max Crosby has only not had a sack or half sack one game, which is pretty insane. So to be getting a tidy sort of 14 points from your two defensive players each week certainly has helped Charlie on his way so far.
I suppose at some point, like, if you go through the league, like Luke's defensive players, for example, aren't terrible, but like Nick Bolton and Josie Jewell aren't exactly Max Crosby and Chris Jones. If you're a team who want to win the whole thing, at what point do you go, right, I need a defensive player now? You know, I don't know. Because like most teams have got one or two big, because like the most consistent points production comes from a linebacker like Fred Warner or someone, or TJ Edwards was really good. It's been really good this year for me. But like the game winning IDPs are always the Max Crosbys, the Myles Garretts, the TJ Watt. At what point do you think, like, I don't know, like how much is TJ Watt worth in our league in terms of picks? Like, 'cause I think it's quite a lot.
I can tell you, I paid a second for Oakland Smith a year ago, which, to be fair, retrospectively is probably a bit of an overpay, because I think at the time we didn't all really understand the relative, the value of a second and what you can do with it. But he's been a very good player for me, and he's coming clutch at key points. I think it's also fair to say, in terms of the elite scoring, that our league has a bit of a quirk, which I proposed an amendment to correct in the summer, but got voted down, which is essentially that because we count quarterback hits for an extra point, but we count that as well as sacks, these players who tend to get to the quarterback, so players like Crosby, have inflated scoring compared to in other IDP leagues. Because ideally what we'd do is either reduce the points for a sack or reduce the points for a quarterback hit. Because at the minute they're getting kind of not quite double points, but they're almost being double counted, because they get the points for the sack and they get the additional points for the fact that it was a hit on the quarterback.
I don't know if a hit on a QB should be a point, but we'll revisit that in a few months, I imagine.
I've got to say, I disagree. I think it should remain a point. And I quite like that among the defensive players, some of the most valuable defensive players in the league are accurately reflected as that.
That's fair enough.
And in terms of IDP, everyone has their own approach to it, I think. Luke's definitely gone for a sort of high floor approach with a couple of linebackers, because they do rack up the tackles and they are pretty reliable to get you at least 3.5 points each week. And then all you need is just some bigger plays to actually rack up some big points there. Or you can do what Charlie's done and just go for two pretty elite, pass rushers, or in Chris Jones's case, just an elite disruptor. Although it's unlikely to pay off in the way that it has for Charlie in really consistent, reliable scoring, unless you've got one of those very, very elite guys. Well,
yeah, he's been consistent for over the season now.
But I think it's fair to say that Max Crosby should be scoring pretty consistent good
Yeah,
points.
no, I
He's a
agree with you. I
consistently
agree
very,
with you.
very
I
good
agree with you.
player.
My opinion is that the best way to do it in the future, I hope, is in our other league we have an expanded defensive player component now, where we have not only you have to start a linesman, you have to start a linebacker, but then you also have to start a back. And I think it's good because at the minute, I agree with Rob. It's good if players who are elite in real life have some use in fantasy, and at the minute, backs generally don't. So I think that's a more interesting scoring format.
But
and it
again, I
makes
mean,
more players
adding a back
relevant.
onto fantasy wouldn't make the premium backs in the league more valuable. They're just by their very
I think
nature
it would.
less
I think it would
valuable.
because you have. No, I think it would because you have to play one then. So,
But you
for
wouldn't
example, if
choose.
you
But
have
you wouldn't choose to play Jalen Ramsey. Say, no one has in fantasy football.
No. But you would still. There are backs who are still elite players like Buda Baker and Derwin James, who are still very good in fantasy. Who you
I
would
think
then value.
Derwin James is the only one who gets played in our league. I don't know who it is that has him. I can't quite remember, but he does get played. For us, because I've seen him about. But yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I don't
Bates
really
has him.
mind how the IDP is set up for the minute. I enjoy it, and I mean, at least I feel like I've got an average IDP setup where I've got a linebacker who gets average points, and then Brian Burns plays every week, but like I would say 50-50 whether he actually gets a sack and does well in fantasy. And I don't mind that.
Luke's team did average as usual, but got away with it this week.
Average as usual.
I mean, like he's played pretty badly the last couple of weeks, and he came back with a slightly less bad performance and got a win. Like, I suppose he could have done with a break. I suppose
He'll have a bounce back. I think really the issue for Luke's team is he doesn't seem to have had a feeling about Sky Moore for a few weeks, and I think that given the fact that I'm pretty sure last week he started somebody who ended up not playing, I'm hoping that it's not a lack of attentiveness to starting lineup decisions that's costing him. But
he's bench posted.
We'll see.
Yeah,
next week he's going to have to rely on them because he's got several players out for the bye. So we'll see how he holds up.
Yeah,
right. Crucial few weeks again, but to squeak through a win from there is massive for Luke.
Yeah, he really needed that. He was going to be my matchup of the week for his next week, but I might change that now because of the updated context of the league. But we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know what my next matchup is, guys.
It's my one with Cristal.
Yeah. So I mean, another close matchup, and one of the only close matchups that wasn't completely dependent on that Monday night game. Your team had a pretty dodgy performance from Geno Smith, but fortunately some very strong performances elsewhere, specifically from your Rams contingent. Puka Nacua had his first down game, but Kupp and Williams looking really excellent.
Yeah, Kyren Williams is very because I was getting one in fantasy football. So he's a very average back, but McVay likes him. Like he finds that whenever I watch him, he looks pretty good. I'm not saying he's Saquon Barkley or McCaffrey, but he looks pretty solid. I don't know if it's just the Rams running game is really good, but yeah, can't complain.
Can't wait for Zach Evans.
Injured now, though.
He is injured for this week though, so I have to play about him. He's like already been confirmed as being out, but it's not on the report yet. Yeah, and what was I going to say? I did actually forget to play a healthy defensive player, but it didn't matter too much in the end. But so last week I was second scorer across the league and beat third. This week I was first in scoring across the league and beat second. So I've been the person I've been playing against has been unfortunate both weeks to be playing me because Cristal would have beaten 10 other members of the league this week with his score, and I was the only one who got a higher score. But I think wasn't this like a historically low-scoring week for fantasy football in general?
Yeah, it was. It really, really was. Thanks to a lot of early injuries and just some poor performances all around. it was not a good week for anyone really. Although interestingly, in our league, no one scored really badly.
It was all just
The lowest score I think was Aiden, but that was he scored 87.
so everyone.
I
scored
scored-
at
I
least
scored lower than that.
it was you, Rob. It was you, Rob,
Yeah.
with your 84.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
I mean, I top scored, but I was just getting hard carried by Justin Tucker running the KC defense. So,
Justin Tucker,
Uh,
watching that lad
oh
in
yeah,
person,
I was
Oh.
licking my lips whenever they couldn't convert on the red zone.
he was marvellous.
uh,
What an athlete.
They kept going on about it on the broadcast, like, "Oh, these Brits, they love their kicking." And it's like, it's like, oh yeah.
It was. There was a lot of people rubbing their legs around me when every time Tucker lined up for a field goal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it was a good close matchup. I think crucial victory on either side. Cristal could have done with a win, but he's shown much better form the last 2-3 weeks. So I have hopes that he'll put a few more wins together. And really, the pressure is on Ronnie in that group to step it up.
I mean, he has
But a
Tyreek
crucial
Hill.
win for you, Lucas, because it keeps you at the top of the
Oh
Earth
yeah,
division.
absolutely
it's
buzzing.
like-
There's now a gap forming to the Heartthrobs in third place.
Yeah,
is
well,
it worth mentioning yet again Adam Thielen's third over 100-yard performance
he was
in 4 weeks?
stressing me
Like,
out.
is he one of the best receivers in fantasy football right now?
He's
What
number
is going
6.
on?
He's number 6.
Like,
In PPR, definitely.
He's a
It's
status
ridiculous.
scorer. He's
Wow.
number 6.
what is he caught 11 passes.
I just suppose if he's like the entire,
true.
like, who else is catching passes for that
He's just
Carolina?
like he genuinely will be a massive loss for Lucas's team in week 7 because he's on bye, and I don't think anyone would have predicted that going in.
What was he last year? He was number 36 last year. He was 27 the year prior, and the 2020 he was number 7. That's quite high. Jesus. Especially like
He's actually good.
he's a good
We all
player.
disrespected him. Yeah.
I wasn't really watching the NFL when he was in his prime, so I can't really say too much because I don't really. He's always been a number 2 whenever I've been watching the NFL. So
Great player.
he's
Great
a solid player though.
And then worth mentioning that Cristal's been storing Zach Evans on the bench
Yeah, you'll get some.
so far this season, and he's come into relevance at a perfect time to step in at that flex spot instead of Mr. Thielen.
At what point is Chase Claypool suiting up for the Cienfuegos though? At what point?
I don't know
I
if he
think
ever will.
in the same week that he's having to suit up Malik Willis and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Is Malik Willis going to stay as the QB2 for Tennessee? Because if he's that bad, then Will Levis must suck.
No, surely Will Levis will
It
take over.
doesn't bode well for Will Levis that he's not already got past Malik Willis, though, given how poor Malik Willis was last year.
Well, it's a
I mean, you mentioned how beautiful it was to watch Justin Tucker do his thing in person, Johnny. How wonderful was it to see Malik Willis?
I don't. I'll be completely honest with you. We left about 3 minutes before the end of the game, so I saw a couple of I saw a Malik Willis run, a Malik Willis sack, another Malik Willis sack, and a punt, and then we were like, "That's it." Which I can confirm was a very good decision.
Can we find out how many dropbacks he had on Sunday? Because to rack up 4 sacks and the amount of playtime he had,
it must
insane.
have been like 10, surely, right? It can't have been too many. He attempted 5 passes.
He almost had more sacks than attempts.
It was probably like 15 snaps that he played.
Oh
I'd say.
dear, Malik.
Yeah. I've just got to turn off my alarm, guys. 1 second.
I will just mention, I know it's somebody else's matchup that you're going to discuss coming up, but those sacks proved crucial given the fact that Bates ended up winning by less than a point. And he was starting the Ravens defense and therefore gained a point with every single one of those sacks.
Actually, wow.
He's praying for the Malik Willis downfall.
He must have been licking his lips when he saw him coming in. Right. Rob, you're up next, by the way, and your first game is the Ramsey Rioters and Weight Wobblers, or Weights Wobblers, sorry.
Yeah, a big matchup, must be said. Two sort of opposing fortunes for the different people, but Callum, he motors on through, in large part, to performances by Jared Goff yet again, who is slowly becoming one of the worst preseason trades we've had this season, Lucas.
Listen. Don't worry about that. So, I don't remember that trade. No one else does. Don't bring it up.
Just want to remind everyone what you traded him away for again.
Oh my god! Just saying.
A 4th round pick and Jimmy G. I dropped Jimmy G straight away. I only did that because
if you turn that 4th into another Puka Nacua, then
it may have been Puka Nacua. Let's be very clear. It actually might have been that pick that was Puka Nacua.
Did you trade him away before the draft?
It was during the draft, I believe.
Oh, I see.
Oh wow! Well, I think you saw Puka and you had to go after him.
Yeah. Wait, let's have a look. There's no way of really telling, is there? You can't really see which pick was which. I picked 3 times in the 4th, so I don't really know exactly. I've got 4 picks in the 4th this year, by the way. So got 4 more shots at Puka
Nuka. Alongside Jared Goff, though, great performances from Kenneth Walker again. He's really sort of pushing Callum on this season. We've mentioned him before, but the massive amount that you paid for him is starting to pay off. It's moved Callum into relevance. Chuba Hubbard actually lead back, not part of a committee, which was to everyone's surprise, I think, and might be able to cover for the loss of Sanders a bit, which again is great news for Callum.
I felt like Callum was celebrating the Sanders going down, not the other way around. Oh, wait. So the Sanders is he injured or was he?
I believe Sanders is injured.
Oh, Callum would have been passing in the street.
But yeah, Callum loving that. Other areas of the team, I think it's worth mentioning Jakobi Meyers, who before we started, me and Johnny were talking about how disappointed I am in the Raiders for just not throwing the ball to Davante Adams. And it really does seem like Jakobi Meyers and Davante Adams have had a weird sort of it's a boy girl thing, like body swap situation, where Davante's spirit is now inhabiting Jakobi Meyers' body. And now on the season he has 4 touchdowns, which is unthinkable for the player that we saw last season.
I think I also dropped him to waivers last year at some point. Maybe it was Johnny actually. He's been dropped away by half the league actually.
He's been passed around. Jakobi.
Me, Mercer, both
Jakobi Meyers.
Both you guys have dropped him to waivers.
You had him on waivers. I picked him up just before the off season. Held him, hoping that he was going to move somewhere that he'd get used more.
Got to be honest, for Olave with him.
Yeah, I was hoping that he was going to be to be honest, be what he is now.
Oh,
but then when he went to the Raiders, I kind of lost hope a bit because I was like, oh, he's going to be behind Adams and even Renfro's there. So
analyze that trend another time. But
otherwise, important to mention that Kareem Hunt had a good week. Callum would like to see that continue if his team is going to continue its ascendancy as the season goes on, because Zach Moss slightly pared back from last week, but again, a touchdown. So
and he's
maybe he won't be completely irrelevant.
The usage is switching. They pretty much shared carries this week.
Usage smooshage.
It's going to be interesting.
On the flip side, though, Ronnie, disappointing, I'd say, for him to have a good week relatively and a good week around the board, but just a few performances letting him down. Demercado, the sort of wild card. No one knew what he'd do. Turns out it was not really anything.
Tough scenes.
So I wonder if he'll get the start next week. And also a down week from the 49ers lost Ronnie quite a few points, which he can usually rely on having. Dameon Pierce again lacking a touchdown, only getting 34 yards. Not enough to capitalize on decent performances from Herbert, and continuing good form from Nico Collins and Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a slightly bleak message from Ronnie after last week, just praying that Quentin Johnston is not going to become the new what was the Isaiah Spiller?
Oh yeah. I mean, he has on the season.
Middle of the
Quentin
first
Johnston
pick by Ronnie for the
has-
Chargers, who is just doing nothing.
Oh my god, is that the yardage? Oh my god.
I think he's got less than 100 yards total.
He has less
hasn't
than
he?
50 yards. Is what he's got.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
That is actually kind of crazy.
and
like.
that's despite Mike Williams being out for several weeks now.
It's
so
yeah,
it's,
despite Mike Williams being out and them having a bye week
and Eckler
as
being
well, which the
Eckler
bye week,
and Mike Williams being out.
the bye week is often a saving grace for rookies to sort of give them some time. to
They
get up to
played
speed in the
Dallas.
offense.
You know, maybe a Chicago week 8 could be breakout time. Can't lie.
They played Dallas, but they didn't play Quentin Johnson much.
Should we have a look and
He's just not getting on the field.
let's have a look at some.
I've also would say, looking at Ronnie's team, that he does have. This is bizarre. So Ronnie somehow next week is starting. These are some of the names in the starting lineup for next week: Keontae Ingram, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jalen Reed, and that's despite having to start all of those players. He's the favoured option over Charlie, and that's in no small part because Charlie still has Jerick McKinnon in his starting lineup.
Charlie knows something we don't, right? Jerick McKinnon is about to go off big.
Do you guys want to hear a few names that have got more fantasy points than Quentin Johnston this year?
Oh yeah.
Do pretty much everyone in the league now.
Two truths and a lie.
Oh, okay. Two. Well, don't look at the stream then.
Oh, okay.
All right. Van Jefferson, the one who got traded from Rams to Atlanta.
He's on Atlanta now, Van Jefferson.
Yeah, he got traded. Yeah.
I completely missed that.
Tyler Scott, the Chicago Bears 5th-round rookie, however it was.
Surely not.
And David Bell, the receiver at the Browns, which is the line.
Oh God.
I reckon David Bell. Wait, so hang on. Quentin Johnson has what, like about 40 yards?
Bell's
is it?
Been like
40
cut by the Browns, hasn't he?
No,
I reckon David Bell might have had a couple of like splash plays, like 20 yards or something across the first.
It doesn't take much to be above Johnson.
Massive splash.
Oh, actually, I reckon David Bell might have done something on special teams that's got him more.
Couple of tackles.
No, I reckon that what's his face, the rookie from this year you were mentioning, he's done something on specials.
Or Tyler Scott.
God knows. Yeah, maybe.
I think you haven't done. I think you haven't done two truths and a lie. You've given us all players who've outscored Quentin Johnston.
I have to admit that he has just about outscored David Bell, who's only.
No.
He caught 3 passes in week 2 and then 1 in this week, and he's only a few spots behind Quentin Johnston. Tyler Scott is he's rushed a few times as well because he's been used in sweeps a couple of times. So he's 128 and Quentin Johnston's 133. But
I think
it's actually shocking.
The thing that provides me, if I was Ronnie, would provide me some sort of hope for Quentin Johnston is that it's not necessarily that he's been really bad when playing. It's just he hasn't been used that much.
No.
And it would be really surprising if the Chargers pay a first round pick for this guy, have injuries, and then don't make any sort of serious effort to get him on the field for the entirety of the season.
He's on the field half the time.
Track record though. They paid a top 8 pick for Mike Williams, and then it took them about 3 or 4 years, pretty much, before they really started featuring him.
But he was playing. He was playing all the time.
He was playing, but he wasn't doing a lot.
He wasn't getting massive plays, but it's not time to call out on Quentin Johnston.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, I agree. It's not the same as a running back doing absolutely nothing for the whole rookie season, but it's concerning.
I mean, JSN's not been amazing either. Not to start picking on Ronnie's draft picks, but I feel like. Well, JSN actually did quite well, but he got 5.3 points, considering before the bye he'd got about that in total from his first 4 games. But he's on the field 75% of the time compared to Quentin Johnston's 50%.
And that's a key massive uptick for JSN after the bye week.
Yeah, and they had a tough game this week, so they've got Arizona coming up. They've got some tough games. They got Cleveland, Baltimore after that, so it could be tough. But
Ronnie's opted to start both of them this week. Well, Jalen Smith and Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Jalen Reed's been better than both of them by a mile. The only issue with Jalen Reed is the fact that he's behind potentially 2 receivers permanently. Because it's not like
potentially 3.
Well, it's like Johnston is behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, but obviously those 2 are both not old. Well, Keenan Allen is quite old, but like Reed is behind Watson and Dubs and who else, Rob?
Potentially Musgrave. If you
potentially
want to,
Musgrave, who are all on their
I think if you imagine a really good wide receiver,
key,
he could overtake either of those other.
Yeah,
that's the key part with Jalen Reed. He's part of a very fluid offense that has a lot of opportunities for young players, and if he does step up in his performances, he will earn himself greater target share.
Right, Robert. You just did Ramsey. I completely forgot that was your game.
Just did it.
Yeah. So then your next one is the Greenwood Grenadiers versus the Cook 69ers.
Big week. I believe this was my game of the week from last week.
Sounds right.
I think it lived up to it. Just over a point separating them, as Greenwood picks up a crucial win again from that Micah Parsons sack that we mentioned earlier, securing him the win last minute. Nuts performance. And again, it's similar with any team that has a lot of high-powered players that scores roughly about 100. You're expecting a few people to underperform, and that was the case for both of these teams. Rashad White for Miles had a pretty poor week, mainly because they went down.
Expect him to underperform all the time.
They went down very early. The game script went heavily against him, and he didn't get a touchdown. So that's never a good thing for your backs. Deebo Samuel was.
Actually, got 1. Sorry.
Deebo Samuel was very disappointing as well. Picked up an injury, I believe it's a shoulder injury, day to day, but might as well hope that he recovers from that quickly. Sam Laporta didn't put in his usual production that we're used to seeing from him, but that was all covered for by pretty amazing performances from, again, the defensive players and Harrison Butker.
Butker
in the kicker position.
Wasn't it like really windy on the Thursday Night Football game and he made a 50+ yarder?
Yeah, he is him.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning Hassan Reddick, who was on waivers, but Miles picked up after his game against Washington. That Washington game was his first sack of the year. Since then, he's got 4.5 in the 2 games that Miles has played him for. So looks like he is also regathering last year's form that he was in.
Whilst we're giving Butker his props, it's worth mentioning that it was around this time last year that Cooks dropped Butker to waivers, only for Miles to pick him up with his waiver priority and subsequently to rock him in his lineup since.
That's pretty
amazing. It was a grudge match for
the
Harrison
2-point
Butker
difference between the kickers as well. Yeah, the 2-point difference being crucial.
Who did drop him for? Sorry, so I don't know.
I don't think it was anyone in particular. I think he got injured.
No. Oh, I see.
I think he was just an amalgamation of other kickers, whereas Miles saw the potential and thought he'd store him on the bench.
Miles did roll with the New England defense again, by the way. He must not be watching the pod. You know,
it's interesting.
Something tells me Miles isn't watching the pod.
He's starting the number 27 defense in football week in, week out.
If Miles is watching the pod, then in no uncertain terms, he has to get the Pats defense out of there before they play.
Buffalo.
2 weeks.
Maybe
Miami.
Someone should just give him a message. Just in case he doesn't watch the pod.
If he wants to start the New England defense, he can.
To be fair, he is in our division, Rob, so maybe we should encourage it.
Yeah, I think they're a great.
Yeah, I think he should be rewarded for commitment to the pod. Punished for not following.
On Cook's side, several people underperforming, which means that the massive week yet again for Raheem Mostert scoring 31 points goes slightly to waste. McCaffrey picking up a slight knock. which is very concerning if he does miss time, but he probably won't. But from the 49ers perspective, I'd like to get your input on this. It surely makes sense to me to not give McCaffrey the same workload he's had in the first few weeks going on into the season, because he is going to be so incredibly crucial for them when they make it to the playoffs, if they want to have a run towards the Super Bowl, that maybe they don't need to put him on, 100% of snaps like he was against the Rams week 2.
I mean, it's
and
very
maybe
clear
they can.
And they've also got other good backs.
They should be playing
Exactly.
Jordan Mason as the lead back, in my opinion.
Well,
Absolutely.
it is noticeable.
But some of these carries,
that,
there's just no reason they need to.
it's noticeable that
you
Elijah
want
Mitchell
to get
got
other
on.
backs involved as well.
Elijah Mitchell got
Sorry,
on the
go on.
field, but didn't really do that much against the Browns. But he's a back who's performed really well in this exact same offense. And if I was the 49ers, I don't understand why you wouldn't get him more involved.
I think there's zero need to be sending McCaffrey between the tackles on like halfback dives. Like it's like, don't send him in there. Just don't do it. Like, you do it occasionally, but like on like a zone read or something. But like, just don't send him up the middle where it's dangerous, where the big guys are, because they'll kill him.
For sure.
So just use him as like, obviously it's a bit of a luxury thing to do with a player you paid a lot for, but at the end of the day, like you say, you want him at the end of the season. So like, just don't use him as much so he doesn't get injured. Like, obviously, you need to win a game. You want like a game-winning drive. Obviously, keep him in the game the whole time. But think about it. Yeah, Carl Shanahan, take some notes, mate. Idiot.
There's a couple of causes for concern I would maybe mention about Ben's team. Number one, Zach Ertz. First game this season, he has had a lower snap percentage than Trey McBride. Trey McBride had a bigger game than him.
Can we mention this, Rob? Because I noticed in our other league you picked Trey McBride up.
I did, but
so are you finally joining the Trey McBride hype train? The train's
not really a hype train.
Yeah, I would have got a hype.
If we go back into this,
he looked
great. You were trying to sell him to. It's what seemed to be the whole league, actually, at the start of the season, as if he was going to be, a monster, which hasn't happened yet.
No. I was selling him for a third. He's not a monster. I was selling him as a developmental prospect.
To be fair, and the way that I chucked away my 3/3 prior to the season, I probably could have used one on Trey McBride instead.
What did you use them on?
I chucked away 2 on Cook and 1 on Rondale Moore, because I was like, why not? It's only a third.
Oh, right.
Which hasn't gone. Ideally,
if you want a fourth, Rob, I've got plenty to go around, mate. I've got 8 over the next 3 years.
I'll come knocking.
Where
mate.
are all those players going to go?
I'll be voting very much in favour of the taxi squad being expanded.
Look, from those 8, he's surely going to find another Puka Nacua.
You just get as many shots as possible. I'll drop them throughout off season.
But anyway, it's first loss for Ben Cook. He will hope to rebound next week, but to be honest, there's downward trends in his players that I'm seeing that I would have cause for concern if that was my team.
Also, his star tight end, Cole Kmet, has lost his QB1, which is always gutting. So he's going to have Tyson Bagent slinging it to him next week against the Las Vegas Raiders. So that'll be a game to watch indeed. Is Jimmy G out for that as well? So it'll be Hoyer v Tyson Bagent.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
Tasty.
Although TJ Watt is back next week, so
that's
a massive addition.
20 points.
20 points.
Casually, yeah. Easy enough, isn't it? It's not hard, guys. Come on.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Sweet one.
There we go.
All right. My 2 games. Maybe we should get the last post back on for Aiden. But yeah, rest in peace, the Pond Power Rangers, now 1-5. I didn't know we mentioned it before, but the player mods obviously are a bit different because we calculated them before Mercer's team literally went to 4-2, then got put back to 3-3. Pretty brutal from Sleeper, but Aiden's odds have gone from 2% to 1% on making the playoffs.
It's harsh.
So tough, isn't it?
Have you seen the meme where like anything that happens in the NFL, people respond saying like, "But how does this benefit Amon-Ra St. Brown?"
Yeah,
Have you seen that meme? Because of the summer after his breakout season, when literally apparently whatever happened, everyone was arguing that it was gonna help him. I guess basically whatever happens in the league, it's how does this make Aiden's
Playoff
situation
odds.
worse?
I mean, Aiden,
How does this hurt Aiden's playoff odds?
in the same vein that they should maybe be resting McCaffrey for the playoffs, perhaps Aiden should be resting players in preparation for the wooden spoon competition. Because wait, does he actually own his first round pick?
He
So
does own his first round
he
pick.
does. Well, that is the silver lining, isn't it? That is the silver lining, and that he's playing for himself once he gets to the wooden spoon. So, he's got that to look forward to. Because obviously I think there's a fairly is there a word generational being thrown about Marvin Harrison? I think it is, right? He's a wide receiver going top 5 potentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Sort of a top prospect at the wide receiver position that he might be in the.
There'll be a good couple of running backs in next year's draft as well, and obviously an absolutely generational quarterback as well.
Of course.
I bloody forgot his name. Not Drake May, the other one.
Caleb
Williams. Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean,
But Spencer Rattler's pretty good.
And Brock
Is he
Bauer.
still around?
Brock Bauer is
Brock
apparently
Bowers, yeah, it could be fun.
the best thing since Kyle Pitts wasn't a thing. But
is he being?
Yeah. So
I always have an issue with drafts, right? Because like you'll hear like draft analysts. So I'm quite, we're all fairly new to the NFL and the draft process. Like, I wish that one thing, like draft analysts like Daniel Jeremiah and all that would do is like, right, put it into context of how high they rate someone. So like, it's very rare that you'll be like, right, this is my grade on Brock Bowers. This is how he rates compared to 1 Kyle Pitts, 2 Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, like all these other players. Because I know roughly how good those players are meant to be in my mind. So I felt they need to be like, right, Brock Bowers should be better than both of them, or than all
I
of
think
them.
sometimes the benefit as well can be is if you pick up some of these names in previous draft cycles. So like Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs were always supposed to be, blue chip prospects, and they were being talked about last year in the Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker class. And I think the thing with Brock Bowers is not only was he being talked about this offseason just gone, he was being talked about the offseason before that.
Yeah.
Same with Caleb Williams, the amount that he's been talked about in terms of.
Well, he's been on title-winning teams, isn't he, as well? So.
Marvin Harrison is a little bit more recent, but I think that's because he's in an offense which is, it literally had Garrett Wilson, Olave, and then until this last season, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So it's just, you need those people to make way so that the next generation of talent can come through.
Yeah,
but,
I feel like you're.
Aiden's going to get a good player with that pick.
Yeah, so that's the silver lining for Aiden. I would be surprised if you could fuck it up in the top 4 of this class.
Yeah. And I would also say that I think that for those listening who aren't Aiden, if you think you're a competitor this year, there are some players who I'm pretty sure I could imagine Aiden would be open to moving. So, for example, if somebody suffered a serious quarterback injury and had very little going on, like if targeting Dak Prescott, who showed this weekend just gone that he can still do it when needed. And I imagine Aiden's getting a bit frustrated with people like Higgins, Judy, maybe even DK Metcalf, definitely someone like Michael Thomas, where because he's needing to look to rebuild now, if you need these kind of depth pieces, I imagine that they'd be available if you were to reach out and discuss it with him in a way that for lots of teams it just simply wouldn't be the case. So
tell you what could be a fun exercise is we each pick 2 different players from Aiden's team that we would definitely be keeping and not moving. Because like
if I was Aiden.
Yeah, so if you go first, Johnny, have a look through this team. Who's the first piece you're rebuilding around going into next season alongside potentially a top 4 draft pick?
I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as someone
We'll
I'll
do one
rebuild
each.
around because
Yeah,
I think it might be someone that that person might be someone that he's yet to draft. But I think that if I was Aiden, the main player, I'd want to see how Roshan Johnson come. To be honest, the actual answer is Anthony Richardson.
Of course, yeah. I did forget about him because he's not on here because of IR. But
yeah.
So AR is the one.
But his other rookies this year, Tank Dell, Anthony Richardson, and Roshan Johnson, I think have all shown out really well. And I would definitely want to be keeping hold of all of them and seeing what they can do.
What about you, Rob? Who's your the person you choose?
Well, I presume I can't choose one of those three.
So what are the three there? Roshan Johnson,
Johnny's just knocked off his 3 rookies who have all been pretty good. I suppose I would wait and keep seeing how Jameson Williams develops, because he was meant to be a really dynamic weapon coming into the league, and if he starts to show it as the season goes on, then he's definitely someone I would look to keep.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think the issue actually is maybe the fact that I was going to say as well, like T Higgins is obviously a really good place for a bad season, so like it would be worth keeping him around because like especially if he leaves Cincinnati, there's a decent chance he ends up being a wide receiver 1 elsewhere. We haven't got to compete with Jamar Chase for targets.
But it's the same thing depending what he's competing for. Like, you know,
is it this year we'll see.
If you were right up there and getting towards the playoffs, you know, and you've got a bit of a need at wide receiver, you might be prepared to pay a good price for T Higgins, and then Aiden might feel that he'd rather cash in on that and then restart with somebody a bit younger in the draft.
But he's not scoring this year though. That's the issue. Sure.
But I think that is a temporary thing. That's come with the Joe Burrow's injury issues at the start of the year. T Higgins has always been good, but he has always had these down weeks. But essentially, what's happened this year is Burrow was injured, and then when Burrow's come back the last 2 weeks and started playing better, that's been when Higgins got injured, was out at the first game injured, and then missed this last game injured as well. So I don't have any doubts that Higgins is going to come back and be his normal self later in the year.
Yeah, fair enough. But then would you not agree that maybe Higgins would be vital to Aiden winning the wooden spoon in that case? You need some players.
Maybe, but this is maybe a strategic difference. I have to say, none of us have ever been in the wooden spoon, so we're not necessarily the best people to talk about it. But I think that if you're strategizing to keep hold of lots of highly competitive players just to drive your performance in the wooden spoon, you're making a mistake, because right around that period before the playoffs is the time where other teams, particularly playoff teams, might be prepared to pay a little bit more for a player, or might be prepared to buy that slightly older, more talented, immediate scoring player, whereas they wouldn't have done previously. And actually, you know, you're better off moving them because you've still got a chance to win the wooden spoon.
Yeah,
there's a lot of randomness in it, and you're against poor teams inherently. So I don't think you should prioritize performance in the wooden spoon over everything else.
I suppose, yeah.
You should be rebuilding the whole time.
Absolutely. We didn't see much about Bates there, so we will just cover his team quickly.
Yeah, sorry.
Big thing for him is Justin Fields, the fact he's gone down. So that's a big fantasy quarterback gone down. His replacement right now is Joshua Dobbs, who he did actually offer him to me in a trade mid red zone. Fortunately for him, actually he wanted Sam Howell actually in return, but he was offering me Joshua Dobbs and Fab, so I turned it down.
$82, Josh Dobbs. Don't forget that.
Is that what you paid for him?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Fair enough.
It was so badly that you paid $82 when no one else put a claim for it.
Oh, James. At least you have him now, though. You need him now. Derrick Henry had a good week. You know, he's still looking like he's, Derrick Henry. He's not like 2021 Derrick Henry, whatever it was, but he's still Derrick Henry.
No.
Very capable of putting up
discussing that this weekend.
20-point games. It feels like I'm getting quite used to seeing Garrett Wilson, Godwin, and Robinson get sort of 8 points each, and that's sort of be it. I don't know, like it feels like I've seen this quite a lot, especially from Garrett Wilson, who scored 5 to 9 points 4 weeks in a row. Bijan's obviously great, but he's gone 6 to 13 4 weeks in a row. Chris Godwin, no higher than 12 points, 6 points 7 weeks. Like it's very like okay, but it's not like we're going to win a title with this kind of form. But Carl Pitts got a couple of touchdowns. We need to, we've got one touchdown this week, and got 50 yards. Wow, unbelievable!
What performance?
No, he did well.
This is it.
It was a crucial victory for Bates, really, because he's got that team where if he makes the playoffs, particularly given some of his better players will come back, he could beat any team on his week. You know, Henry and Robinson are about as high ceiling running backs you're going to get. Fields on his day can be a very high scoring quarterback. He has got some good wide receivers. Pitts, if he pulls himself together, can be a good option at tight end. So his team can be good. It's just that he's had a kind of start to the season in terms of his form. And obviously, he's now got a few crucial injuries to Jefferson, to Fields, to who was it who got else who got injured this week? Nobody. I'm making it up. But anyway, point being that he's in a bit of a pickle in our division because both Ramsey and Charlie started so well. He's kind of got himself back in amongst the pack. Say again.
So I put up the standings for the winners, but I realised it's actually wrong because I took the screenshot yesterday.
Well, he didn't win.
Shows how bottom of the.
But
division.
I guess it's one of those things where he's actually now it's Charlie who's at the bottom of the division on points scored, but he is in a dogfight, Bates here. So fortunately, I know that Bates has made some very smart waiver moves over the years in the different divisions that I'm in with him. So if there's anyone that I reckon can kind of navigate it well and pick up the wins in the tight matchups where he needs them, it is him. And I definitely think he needs to be doing what he can to do it, because if he makes the postseason, he's got every chance to do well in it. But it is going to be tight for the next few weeks.
The win division is definitely through 6 weeks the tightest one. I mean, the bottom place is Charlie, who's 3-3. Compare that to the Earth division, where it's Pond, who's 1-5, and then Luke and Luke's actually 3-3 now, so he's now second in the fire division. But Chris Dow and Ronnie are both 2-4 in the fire division. So I mean, it's only one win. If you really think, I mean, if you like deeper, but it feels like a lot further away. You're like when you're bottom of the division, really, because you just need to get up to third at bare minimum. But even then, you've still got to beat out the third place teams from the other two divisions anyway. So yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning with Bates quickly that the three players that you highlighted earlier, Lucas, Godwin, Wilson, and Robinson, like every fantasy football advice out there would say just stick with them. They're due to have that positive regression in terms of touchdowns, because Robinson's only had 2 touchdowns, both of which have been receiving. Now, Godwin has had no touchdowns on the year, and Wilson hasn't had a touchdown since week 2. So the fact that they're putting up, 8-9 points each week without getting really any touchdowns is very encouraging.
Yeah,
and you'd expect them to sort of creep upwards.
And also, crucially, he has the Josh Dobbs, Marquise Hollywood Brown stat. So anyone facing him in upcoming weeks has got to tremble in.
I cannot wait to lose to that combination in the coming week.
Right, and then the last game of the week, we're going to be done in good time here, it would seem.
I think we could just skip this one, Lucas.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Anyway, we could just get cracking on the game matchup for next week.
Yeah.
I didn't realise we hadn't discussed it yet, lads.
Yeah, so obviously...
I'll tell you what, Rob, which one was more painful, this one or the matchup in our other league?
Let me look in our
Presumably this one. It left you reeling.
I'm on the same record, both leagues. They were both shit. Can I just say that?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, Rob, so a couple of tough performances for you. Well, I mean, Montgomery's got an injury, and I'm not sure quite how bad that is. A cartilage issue for Devin Montgomery in his ribs, never ideal, but I'm sure he'll be fine and back.
Just a little bit of cartilage issue.
Just a little bit. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, we already covered it briefly. Is the fact that Devontae Adams is getting beaten out for targets and receptions by
just unreal.
Jacoby Myers.
Because I just don't understand it because he's the same player. He's the same player when you see him play. He's still getting his incredible releases. He's still causing a lot of issues and getting free in the same way that he always used to, but he's just not getting looks.
Is there any chance he gets traded, or is that sort of out of the window?
Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of other nice performances. Brian Robinson's just being okay, solid throughout the whole year. I mean, I think you would have had a chance if Montgomery hadn't gone down.
I think so. Well, with Montgomery going down and Adams just underperforming, just really killed it. I cannot wait for whenever Brian Robinson does return to my bench, because undoubtedly then he'll go back to his sort of 20 point a week form that he showed earlier.
12-point games.
11.6 is a good old game.
Oh yeah.
You'd take that from a starter.
Also love it if Antonio Gibson can refrain from taking any 1-yard touchdowns in the future. Just leave them to Brian Robinson, please.
Right. Well, anyway, Johnny, how about you who are your favourite performances from your team? And we'll limit you to 3 players.
I tell you what, I'll talk about 2 players. Right. I'll say Brandon Aubrey. I still love Brandon Aubrey. The lad's just effervescent. So that's sorry. Will give you 3 because there's one on my bench that I think was actually really good. So the first one I say is Breece Hall. Because we all know how talented he is, and he unfortunately we've all seen J.K. Dobbins struggle last year coming back from a nasty ACL tear, and then obviously the horrible injury at the start of this year, and that's the kind of nightmare that you want to avoid when you've got these talented young running backs. Breece Hall looked incredible last year before his ACL tear, and I'm very glad to see that he pretty much looks like he's back to the same guy now. So we can hopefully the rest of this year really see what Breece Hall can bring to this league and whether he can be one of the next great running backs. And I feel like he can. So that's been great, and I needed that in my running back room as well. AJ Brown, I'll call him out because you were saying a second ago, Rob, looking at the Garrett Wilsons of this world who are consistently getting 7 or 8 points without a touchdown. AJ Brown's only touchdowns came in his massive 30-point game week a couple of weeks ago. But he's still been scoring big points for the last 4 weeks. It's just that he's been scoring them because he's been getting over 130 yards every week. So I'm very happy with that. If he continues to do it, then I'll be, chuffed to bits. He'll score touchdowns. He'll score a lot more touchdowns than he has been because 2 touchdowns through 6 weeks is low for him. So I'm very, very happy with AJ at the minute. And then the last one I'll call out is Ramondre Stevenson, which might not be the most obvious one, because obviously it was a bit of a frustrating week for the Patriots still. And actually, Stevenson's numbers, particularly given that he lost a red zone touch, turned into a touchdown to Zeke Elliott, they might look a bit frustrating. But the thing is he was making little chunk plays in this last week in a way that he hasn't been able to for a few weeks. So, a 15-yard rush here and there. He was much more involved in the passing game, which had kind of disappeared in the last few weeks since week 1, which for Stevenson's, high ceiling, he really does need that. That's what sets him apart from other running backs, is how involved he is in the passing game. And ultimately, the only reason he lost that work to Zeke was because he missed the central half of the game whilst he was having a concussion check that took him out for about 40, 50 minutes. Either side of half time. So it's very, very reassuring to see him return to positive ways, because the thing is, if the Patriots are going to feature him in the passing game, he doesn't need the Patriots to be a particularly strong offense to be good and usable and dependable. And he is one of their better options, so they're a better team when they feature him heavily. So that was really reassuring, because I'm going to have to continue to rely on him over the next few weeks as buys come by, and it'd be always nice to be able to check him in as a flex as well. And he had been struggling.
You did say that, Johnny, but I know for a fact that you've been shopping around this fella in trade. So would you say that you are perhaps using this podcast as a shop window for Ramondre Stevenson and his potential ability for any buyers out there?
I can share that particular trade to the entire league if they'd like. I'll be completely open. So I have been engaging Callum Ramsey in a potential trade offer for.
So sorry, just stop right there. That's
for-
Another two of his first round
Nothing
picks.
strikes more fear in any member of this league than hearing that Johnny's in a trade conversation with Callum Ramsey. Everyone's like, "Shit, what's he going to do now?"
All I need to say is that the main value, the big pieces involved isn't actually Stevenson. It's something else or some other things plus Stevenson for Ken Walker. And that the key would be is the idea that he wasn't happy to move Walker if it wasn't for the fact that if he didn't have a very, consistent and usable and good running back to step in his place. And my argument is that Ramondre Stevenson, to be honest, he could easily end up outscoring Ken Walker the rest of this year. So we'll have to wait.
I would point out Ramondre Stevenson is playing on, you could argue, very easily as the worst offense in football.
You could indeed.
Okay.
I'm genuinely happy to stand by that. I think
you got a sandwich bet, Johnny, that Ramondre Stevenson will outscore Ken Walker.
I tell you what. I think he won't, but I think he could. I would have a sandwich bet with you that he'll outscore Ken Walker in PPR formats, which I know we don't have. I'm not arguing that. I think if I was given an outright choice, I'd rather have Ken Walker the rest of the season than Stevenson. But obviously, Ken Walker's smashing it right now. So the fact that you'd even engage in that discussion is pretty good. No. Do you want that sandwich bet? I'll give you a sandwich bet. I think Stevenson will outscore Walker in PPR the rest of this year.
Oh, God's sake.
Are you going to take it? What are you going to do about Stevenson's bye week?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We'll say average point score.
No, I've taken them on before.
No, well, we didn't agree.
You offered it.
Wait.
Lucas, that's my witness. You said Johnny offered it, didn't he?
Me did.
No, but as you were debating,
and I accepted it.
No. As you were debating, Lucas put the proposal to us. So
well, I don't recall that, Johnny.
It's average score in PPR versus. Anyway, the point stands. I think the key thing is that Stevenson really struggled the last month. And so the question was much more of, is he going to be usable at all this year in that offense? And I think that given that he was basically playing the three best running defenses in the league, he was playing the Jets, he was playing the Browns, he was playing the Cowboys. You have to look at this and take positives from Eagles. It because I love the man. Did he play the Eagles as well?
Yeah.
Oh, Eagles.
I do agree. It's not been favourable, but
he won't be in a favourable matchup at all this season.
The
Patriots are so bad.
No, but Rob, this is what I'm saying. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be so long as the Pats are involving him in the passing game, and they hadn't for about a month. He'd barely been involved. And last week he went back to having 6 targets.
You're only worried.
I view him as very touchdown dependent.
Your worry is that,
which is concerning.
They're going to be chasing games. So you might get game scripted out of his big performances because they're playing Buffalo and Miami. The next 2 games.
Historically, that hasn't been a problem for him. Historically, in previous seasons, when he's involved in the passing game, he can have the big games in the games where they're chasing. This is what I'm saying. The crucial thing from last week is that he almost even more so than the box score, you could just see they were involving him in the passing game. There was designed runs for him. Designed passing plays for him. And really that's where his upside comes from. So it was very encouraging to see them back.
Just think again, looking for he's got the Bills coming up twice, the Jets coming up again, he's got Kansas.
Miami twice, I believe. I don't think
Miami once, to be fair.
Did they beat Miami already?
Hang on, but I'd be quite happy playing against Miami. They've not got a particularly good run defense.
But you're going to be down like 20 points within like 5 minutes. That's the issue.
I think the only way you can score it is you can look at just look online at points scored against different defenses. And if you look on it, funnily, it doesn't show it on the Sleeper website that I'm on right now. But if you look on the app, you can look at the upcoming fixtures, and it gives you an indication of either green, orange, or red as to how different teams' running backs have scored against individual teams. And most of the rest of the season's green now. Buffalo have been surprisingly poor against the run. I mean, Etienne showed it last week. They have been surprisingly poor. So I'm quite happy starting him this week. I think he's not in a bad spot.
If he doesn't get
Whereas
a
he was-
touchdown, he won't have a good week.
I
That's
don't
my
agree.
opinion of him.
I think he's being featured heavily enough, and the difference, if you have a completely rushing dependent running back in a not great offense, they kind of have to score touchdowns, score points. And I agree with you. The last month, he's definitely been that. If he's involved in the passing game, he can be good without getting touchdowns.
Just if he hadn't got the 2 touchdowns that he's had this season, his highest scoring week would still be week 1 against the Eagles at 8.9.
Yeah, but
he hasn't surpassed
also, Rob,
70 yards in any other game.
But Rob, no one's arguing that the last month has not been poor. That's the reason why it's.
Well,
been
you
so,
are.
No, I'm saying the last month was terrible.
Okay.
That's the whole point. That's why it's refreshing to see him come out and play well this last week. And I think that you have to remember, looking at this last week's game as well, that he literally only played half the game. So I don't know. There was a lot of positives to take for it for me.
At risk of losing the audience with the Ramondre Stevenson New England Patriots running back talk, I've got the standings up for everyone who's obviously. I thought the standings should get hammered through a bit more on Sleeper, I think. But and also I think we should Sleeper, if they're watching, should also let us put an icon for the divisions. Just putting it out there. But yeah, as it stands in the north, the Earth division. Morans and Greenwood 4-2, 4-2. Frobs 2-4, still in third place though, so can't complain. All you got to do is be the not the worst third place team. Pond obviously bring up the rear there. One thing I did notice as well.
Oh, I can put photos for the different divisions.
Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I do have some icons you could use.
Cool, send them across.
But one thing I did actually notice when I was just having a little trawl through is the fact that we've obviously been noticing the fact that Luke and the Simon Sweethearts have been underperforming a bit. I think they're sat at 3-3. They're doing this while being the most scored against team in the league. They've had 721 points scored against them. I think that the next biggest is Ronnie with 700, with 699. So fairly sizable amount, but he's also the second lowest scoring team in the whole league at the same time. And it's still 3-3. So well, you could say that, Rob, but you could also be up to this point. You'd be pretty happy with that if you were Luke, like genuinely, like. But also, like we were saying, win division is pretty tight. 4-2. Ramsey Writers lead the way. Everyone else is 3-3. And then 5 division, 2 teams 2-4. And then Simon Sweetheart's 3-3, and Cook 69 is the highest scoring team in the league. So at 5-1. With that being said, guys, going into next week, what are your matchups of the week?
Can I go first?
Go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
I'm picking out the Cook 69ers against the Morans. Oh. And I think this because it's a crucial game on both fronts. 2 teams doing well at the top of their respective divisions. I think I'm interested to see how Ben performs, given that he's had a few easier matchups and now he's having to play some of the better teams. And he's having to do it with some star players out injured. It'll certainly be interesting if he's missing, for example, McCaffrey. And it could be a bit of a capitulation, but I'm interested to see how it goes, because if he can win this, I'll be very impressed.
That would be quite tasty if McCaffrey is out. Not like anything mean about Christian, but I do hope he doesn't play. But apparently it's like, it's well, we know everyone knew it wasn't a long-term injury, but like I feel like if you're San Fran, you're playing. I was under the impression they had Minnesota then a bye week, but they actually have 2 games before the bye week. So I feel like, and one of them's against Cincinnati, which is fairly crucial. So I feel like you want McCaffrey back for that game. So maybe you don't bother, because if they were playing Minnesota this week and then they had a bye week, it's one of those things where like you might as well just not play him before the bye week and just give him 2 whole weeks off, and then just come back strong after the bye. But if they got 2 games prior, then maybe your thinking doesn't really apply to that. But obviously, I personally don't want to play against McCaffrey at all. But I'm hoping that Austin Eckler can maybe come back to his full form and sort of counteract any points that McCaffrey does get, or at least get close to matching them. Yeah. I actually might not start Puka Nacua this week as well for the first time.
No, no.
No doubt he'll make me regret it. But like I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you can't start 2-3 players even from the same team week in, week out. Like you need to find some sort of way around it. But yeah, we'll have to see. Rob, what is your matchup of the week?
I think I'm going to look at the Hart Hogs versus the Pond Power Rangers. Because interestingly, because Johnny hasn't opted to pick up a kicker to replace the on-bye Brandon Aubrey yet.
Oh, I will be. I will be.
Either way, I enjoy seeing that it has it closer than many people might think right now. And with Johnny's resurgence coming along alongside him, like everyone, I think, agrees that Johnny has the best roster in the league. I'm watching it closely and would love to see a 1-5 Aiden surge to a win.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden's one win was against me, so I would be able to emphasise with Johnny if this does happen. But obviously, he will have the whole league rooting for him.
He will be. I will be watching Baker Mayfield slinging it against the Falcons with great interest.
I will say it is
I
projected
already
to be close.
received a message from Aiden this week telling me that Aiden has already messaged me this week telling me that Baker is coming for me. So I'm trembling.
I think someone like Baker is exactly what Aiden's team needs.
A bit of moxie.
Bit of moxie, yeah. You got moxie, kid.
The intangibles. Not many points, but the intangibles.
Yeah, some warrior spirit.
My game of the week was going to be the Ramsey Writers Summers week. I'm kind of reconsidering it now that Luke isn't quite as far down. It doesn't necessarily need the win as much as he did before. Like, but obviously, you need it anyway as much as any other. So it's a bit of a null point. So I will stay with the Writers Sweethearts because the main thing actually is the fact that I just can't wait to see the needle in our group chat between these two mid matchup. I just can't wait.
Who is Luke going to start at running back?
Well, this is interesting. He has Mixon, Pollard on bye,
as well as Spears.
So it will be.
He's got one running back that's playing next week.
Latavius Murray will be coming in. Actually, you know what Luke's done for. Sorry, Luke. This is not my match of the week. Sorry, pal. Let's go for the.
I can't wait to see who Luke's going to play.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go.
I think that makes it a particularly interesting matchup.
No. I'm gonna. I actually did not realise that. I'm going with.
Can I also say that I low key think that Latavius Murray could be decent this week because the other power back in that offense has just had a serious injury, and James Cook looked terrible last week and was low key eased out of the offense in the second half. So.
Okay. Well, there you go. So that's. I am going to change mine to the Frob's bang averages, but we'll keep an eye on the Latavius Murray situation going into week 7. But we'll see how Bates and Joshua Dobbs can do against Trevor Lawrence and the Heartthrobbs as well. This is sort of a mid-range battle going on here. Obviously, I don't think Rob wants to drop to 2-5, especially with what could be a playoff contender for the third place, potentially, maybe down the line in the Bates bang averages. Who, then I think Zeke Elliott I can see here in the starting lineup. I'm assuming someone's on bye. Derrick Henry on bye there for you, Rob. I've got to face him. Haven't got to face Garrett Wilson or the Jets defense. Obviously Justin Fields.
Or Justin Fields or Justin Jefferson. So it's an enormous match for me.
Could be a lot worse, right?
I have to win it, really.
Yeah, I mean, on your side, you're missing not too many players. Like you're missing your Bengals IDP and kicker. But have you been playing the Rams defense the whole time?
Nope.
Who's been playing?
Just picked them up.
Brand new acquisition. I mean, I'm sure you'd like to see Montgomery come back, but I don't think it's likely, is it?
Not holding out hope there.
No, he'll be out for a little bit, says Dan Campbell. So there you go.
Dan Campbell's hopeful, just a little bit. He's just got a little owie.
It's an ouchie. It's an ouchie. That's what you said.
Uh,
Yeah. All right. I think that pretty much wraps up the week. Obviously,
done.
some late drama at 7 a.m. prior to the recording of this pod. Made for some interesting talking points. And if any of our league members want to, call out their fellow league members right ahead of future podcasts, go right ahead. We love to see that sort of bit of needle between the teams. A bit of rivalry there. Whistleblowers obviously not too pleased with the Heart Hogs. A bit of bad blood, it would seem. So keep that coming, guys. We love that. All right. But yeah, see you guys next week.